Welcome to this explainer. Okay, so today we're tackling one of those classic, legendary electrical interview questions. It sounds super simple on the surface, right? But the reality? Oh man, it hides some massive, life-or-death stakes right inside the walls of your own home. If you've ever stared at your electrical panel and wondered about the hidden physics, the engineering keeping you safe every single day, well, you're exactly where you need to be. So here is the million-dollar question. What actually happens if you connect your earthing wire in place of the neutral? It's a fascinating what-if scenario, and we're going to look at this from two totally different angles today. First, the pure physics of it all. Like, if we literally swap these wires, will your TV actually turn on? And second, we have to confront the terrifying practical reality of trying to outsmart basic electrical engineering.
Section 1. Back to basics. Neutral versus earthing explained. Let's just lock in our core terms before we go hypothetically rewiring things and breaking the rules.
So, as you probably know, in a standard single-phase system, that neutral wire is your everyday return path. It completes the circuit, allowing your equipment to happily hum along and run continuously. Earthing, though, that is purely an emergency safety net. It does not exist to run your gear. Its whole job is to provide a safe, super direct path straight to the ground for any leakage current, keeping it far away from you. Think of neutral as the daily commuter, and earthing as your personal bodyguard. Which brings us to Section 2, the theory. Will the equipment run? Time to put on our theoretical physics hats for a second and see if the Earth can actually step in and do the neutral wire's job.
Seriously, to get any electrical equipment running, you only really need to knock out two basic conditions. Step 1, you've got to create a voltage difference. Step 2, you have to complete a closed circuit loop. That's it. Without a difference in pressure, current just sits there. It won't flow. And without that closed loop, it has no way to get back to the source. But if we can somehow pull off these two steps using earthing instead of neutral, theoretically, the machine powers right on.
And this brings us to the magic number, 230. In your standard household system, your phase wire brings in 230 volts of potential, right? And the earth wire? It just sits perfectly at 0 volts, exactly like a neutral wire does. So boom, you've successfully created that required 230 volt potential difference. Step 1 is officially complete. Current is absolutely going to want to flow.
But what about step 2, that all-important closed loop? Well, check this out. All the household earth wires and the broader earthing grid outside are actually physically connected together. So if you shoot current down the earth wire, it finds its way through that grid and perfectly completes the path. We've got our voltage difference, we've got our closed loop. So the totally wild theoretical answer to our big question? Yes. Purely from a physics standpoint, if you use earth as neutral, your equipment is absolutely going to run.
Section 3. The reality. The deadly shock hazard. Please, whatever you do, do not try this at home. Because we need to urgently pivot away from the theoretical yes to a very real, very massive but. It all comes down to leakage current. In a normal setup, leakage is just a tiny, accidental thing, right? Like maybe a frayed wire brushing against a metal casing. But if you intentionally swap your neutral for earth, you are taking all of that heavy, regular return current and forcing it to act as leakage. You're literally dumping the full, massive operating current of your appliance directly into your emergency safety net.
And that creates an absolute nightmare scenario, a cascading danger. Here's how it plays out. First, your heavy return current floods into the earth wire. But remember how we said household earth wires are all interconnected? Yeah, so that current doesn't just disappear quietly. It travels through your entire earth network straight into the metallic casing of every single grounded appliance in your house. Your washing machine, your microwave, your fridge. Their metal bodies suddenly become electrically live. Literally, you could just walk into your kitchen, touch your fridge, and suddenly you become the fastest path to ground. The result is a massive, potentially fatal electric shock. Using earth as neutral essentially turns your entire house into a lethal trap.
Okay, Section 4, the protectors and why safety switches trip. Let's take a deep breath here. Luckily for us, modern engineering has built in fail-safes specifically designed to stop the exact disaster we just walked through. You've probably seen these acronyms before, ELCB and RCCB. These safety devices are the true, unsung heroes sitting quietly in your electrical panel. They are constantly, obsessively monitoring the current going out on the phase wire and coming back on the neutral wire. And if even a microscopic fraction of that current goes missing because it's leaking into the earth, these devices detect that abnormal fault instantly and just sever the circuit entirely.
So let's say you actually tried this crazy experiment in a modern home. The whole thing would be over in a flash. You wire the earth in place of neutral, right? You excitedly flip the switch to see if it runs. Immediately, the current flows out to the earth wire instead of neutral. The ELCB or RCCB looks at this and goes, wait a minute, 100% of the return current is missing from the neutral path. It registers a massive abnormal earth fault. Bam! The safety switch trips, instantly killing the power dead. Practically speaking, your equipment won't even run because your safety breakers are going to crash the party the exact millisecond you flip that switch.
And that brings us to the end of our explainer today. Section 5, the final verdict and electrical safety standards. We've looked at the fascinating physics, the terrifying hazards, and the really clever engineering that saves our lives.
The ultimate golden rule here is so perfectly clear. Never ever use earthing in place of neutral. Sure, theoretical physics says it'll turn the light bulb on, but it introduces such severe shock hazards that you could electrocute anyone just touching an appliance in the building. It's a complete and total violation of every core safety standard out there. Trying to bypass standard wiring just for convenience or because you can't easily find a neutral line, it is absolutely, unequivocally never worth risking a human life.
So I want to leave you with this final kind of provocative thought. When was the last time you actually tested the safety breakers in your own electrical panel? I mean, we just learned that they are quite literally the only thing standing between a simple wiring mistake and a lethal shock. They have those little test buttons right on the front for a reason. I highly encourage you, after this explainer, go take a look at your setup. Get to know the silent guardians protecting your home and just make sure they're actually in working order. Thank you so much for joining me today. Stay safe, stay curious, and I'll catch you next time.